Entering in Siege is the most popular role on attack and arguably in the game, which is why in today's video I'll be going over the 4 levels of entering so you can get better at it. The first level of entering being rushing. Now, most people go for kills and rush when they try to entry. Given that the majority of the player base is in high silver to low gold, I'm at least a little confident that yes, it is the majority of the player base, as I've seen it even firsthand on my alt account as well. Now, there's no problem with a well-timed and thought-out rush, but that's the thing. It has to be well-timed and thought out and well-planned. If you don't have a plan or a drone on entry, it becomes a lot harder to do what you need to do because of the simple law of siege luck. That means there's going to be a random alibi sitting in a corner waiting for you the second that you decide not to drone on your rush. It's weird, it happens, I don't know why it happens, but welcome to Rainbow Six Siege. At this point, you're probably playing Ashe and other 3 speeds as well as Amaru, because these are the ones that allow you to rush and entry the fastest, but that's not really what entering is about, which is funny because the majority of the player base would love to disagree with me because they do nothing but rush when they try to entry frag. People hear entry, frag, and only focus on the frag part. They rush because they think that that's the best time to get kills because it catches people off guard the most, but that is not at all what entering is about. Like I said, you can rush, and it's better if you have a team to rush with, but that's not the main objective of entering. That is just a certain subset style of entering that you need to be able to use whenever the time calls for it, which, by the way, is pretty rarely. So you don't want to be rushing as much as you want to be doing other things and other styles of entering, which we will go over right now. The second level of entering is entering for picks or kills. At this point, you know that entering is much more about getting the actual entry frags than just rushing into sight and being aggressive, because you can play passively and play with information and play slow and still get an entry frag. There's no reason to be overly aggressive, especially when you don't have to and when it can get you killed. Now, at this point, you probably play operators like Yana and Finka the most, with Ashe being really only if you rush or to counter a Mira. Getting kills is something that you're better at than using utility to win rounds. Out of all of your friends, you're probably the one that is better at getting kills, or at least you'd think that you are. There's nothing wrong with that. Siege needs these players to survive as much as they need the supports to survive, but you still have some improvement to be had about becoming a much better entry, because besides what you may think, entering actually isn't as much about getting kills as most of the player base thinks. At this point, you're probably beyond gold or silver, maybe even in the emerald to diamond range, but trust me, even the champs that I play with still are stuck on the second level of entering. At this point, you start to realize that you can not be as aggressive when you go for entering as you were when you were being in the first stage. You can actually sit and drone people, sit and use utility to entry frag. For example, let's talk about Yana. As Yana in the prep phase, if you have a cutoff drone to watch a flank or to clear some part of the map like you would with the small tower camera in Oregon, you can still drone yourself in, then use your clone to clone yourself in, use 2 different drones to make sure that no one is actually where you just droned to double check, and then you can run in. Not only this, but with Yana having EMP grenades, you can help your teammate also EMP the wall and then go in after that and still get an entry frag. There's no reason that you need to get an entry frag within the first 15 seconds of the round. If someone's spawn picking you, sure, take advantage of that, but you don't have to get kills that early, and you don't have to be aggressively swinging everything to get a kill. If you've ever played support, you know what I mean. You can easily open up a wall and bait people who are overly swinging you. You can do the exact same thing on entry. Chances are if someone is roaming, they think that they're spoiled, so they're going to swing you. You can just bait that. I wouldn't recommend baiting for more than like 5 to 10 seconds if you know someone is there, because we are in a swing or be swung meta, but I'm also not going to pretend like roamers aren't really dumb, especially with ranked 2.0, so play to your advantages and to your teammates' disadvantages, and you will become a much better entry player. But like I've been trying to tell you over and over and over again, entering is not just about getting kills, just like roaming is not about getting kills. If you want to know what I'm talking about there, check out the video at the end of this video to know what I mean. But with that out of the way, if entering isn't about kills, then what is it really about? This brings me into my third level of entering, the one that most pro players are on and the one that most content creators like me are still on. Now, the third level of entering is entering for space taking and map control. Quick disclaimer that when I refer to the word space, I'm just referring to map control. It's just a little bit easier for me to say space, so that's why I do it. But with that out of the way, what is entering for space? It's exactly what it sounds like. You enter the building to try to establish early map control, or space. That way, the rest of your team with important utility like a thermite, an ace, a thatcher, don't risk their life entering the building and rooms with potential roamers. You can do that and take the gunfights, and they can refrag you because you have less important utility. At this point, you probably play operators like Buck and Yana the most, operators that are great for establishing early control at a fast pace with good guns and great utility for entry fragging to help them out in the process. At this stage, you start to realize that the word entry has much less to do with entry frags and much more to do with entering into the map. Establishing initial space into the building is your main job as an entry, and is the best way that you can think of entering. Now, typically, when you enter the building, there's a defender that you have to fight to take that space you are entering in, unless you're on a big map like Theme Park, Nighthaven Labs, Clubhouse, or any of the big maps in the game, which is why there's a misconception in the community that you need to get kills on entry, and entry is entry fragging. Now, entry fragging is useful, for sure, but kills are just a byproduct of the main reason, which is actually establishing map control. Now, why is establishing map control important as an entry? Well, it's like I just said earlier. If you have hard breachers trying to get into the building to open up a wall that is on the interior of said building, they need to be able to clear and drone and roam clear and get kills in order to actually get the wall open. But why would they risk their life when their utility is so important when they can just have a Yana clone in, kill that person, or die so that they can refrag and do that for them? It just doesn't make sense, right? Which is why entry fragging still exists. Like I said, you can entry frag and entry frag for kills at that, or even for rushes, but because the game needs people like you to do that in order for your teammates to refrag your dumbass. But even if you are entry fragging correctly, it's still viable to take map control. The more and more map control or space that you're able to take, especially early in the round, the easier it is for your teammates to get utility down. Let's say that you're trying to play vert on a site that you can play vert on, whether it's above or below. You need to be able to roam clear any roamers that are on the map, and the best people to do that are entry fraggers, maybe with the help of other flex operators like Jackal, Dokkaebi, or a Lion. But you get the idea. You need to get those frags, you need to take that space so that in the middle of the round, your team can slow down, start droning, getting vert, using utility so that at the end of the round, they can get smokes down and get the plant down. Entering specifically as well needs to happen within the first minute of the round, or else you're a little bit too late and a little bit too slow to your job, so keep that in mind that you need to be doing it in a timely manner as well. Now, you might be wondering, even after that entire spiel about how it's the best way that you can entry, what could possibly be the final way to entry? Well, just like in my roaming video, which you should go check out after this video, it is a mix of the last three, but specifically when they are needed. It is a mix of rushing, getting kills, and taking map control, but only when you need to utilize each one of the three at its best potential. Sometimes establishing map control, depending on where you are and what map you're on, is less important than getting a frag in that moment, and sometimes rushing can be more important and a better option than map control, although that scenario is a little rare. The final form of an entry player is knowing which of the previous modes to enter when they need to do their job as an entry. These are the best of the best entry players, and it's something that even pro league players are still working on to this day, and honestly is something that you can never perfect. It takes a lot of game sense, a lot of game knowledge, and a lot of understanding in the game to be able to do this to a T. And like I said, you can't perfect it. You just have to try your hardest. You have to know when it's best to rush. Do you see that there's 4 roamers and only 1 on site, and you see a clear path to get to the site? That's probably a good sign that you can rush, especially if you have comms with your teammates and a strat in mind with utility to help you rush. It can actually be a viable strategy. You need to know when to actually go for kills. Is it a smaller map where you can't establish map control without actually going for a kill, like coastline or border, a skyscraper? Then yeah, getting kills is more important than maintaining space or rushing, right? So you need to know when to pull that out. On bigger maps, when you need to roam clear, when you need to take vert, when you need to get walls open on the board, like Clubhouse, Nighthaven Labs, then yes, map control is going to be the most important thing that you need to focus on. It's very map dependent. Not only is it map dependent, but it's also dependent on the operator that you are playing, just like in my roaming video. If you are playing Ashe, it is much more viable that you rush or you go for picks, but if you're playing somebody like Yana, it's much more viable for you to go for map control because you have drones that allow you to do that for absolutely free. Now that she doesn't have flash grenades, she's much less viable for getting kills and much more viable for playing like a flex entry, kind of like somebody like Lion, Jackal, or Dokkaebi. If you want to entry with somebody who's meant to get kills, you can easily play somebody like Buck or Finka or Zofia, who all have utility to help them get kills and flash grenades to secure those kills once you've used your utility beforehand. So, depending on the operator, can actually depend on what type of playstyle that you have. And this isn't even scratching the surface here. There's so many different moving parts when it comes to how you're supposed to entry in Rainbow Six Siege, which is why I thought I'd make this video for you. Now, as much as I want to be the perfect content creator for you and give you all of the answers, if you want to become the final stage of entry fragging, the 4th on this list, there isn't really a perfect golden rule that I can give you so that you know exactly what to do at all times. Like I said, it comes with experience, but if you want me to make it a little bit simpler for you, I can. Instead of worrying about the operators that you're playing, the maps that you're playing, the size of the maps that you're playing, you can focus on just one thing, and that is the flow of the round. If you notice that they have a heavy roam presence, you might want to take it a little bit slower and less aggressive, because taking a 1v3 is a lot harder than a 1v1, and you have to isolate every single person in that 1v3, which can take a lot of time. If it's still super early in the round, especially on a bigger map, then you need to be prioritizing map control, because you need to be taking rooms as fast as possible, especially on bigger maps where there's a lot of rooms that you have to take in order for your teammates to get down utility as fast as possible so they have as much time as possible to use the utility. If someone like Ram or Sledge or Buck is trying to play above a site, but they only have 20 seconds to do so before they need to rotate to the site to get the bomb down, then their vert wasn't actually all that useful because it took your entries so long to roam clear and get to the portion of the map that they needed to get you to. If you're trying to open a wall or open hatches so you can drop and get the plant down, it's much harder to do that when you only have 30 seconds to get utility down, drone people, pre-fire people, bait, maybe get some kills, smoke things, and get a plant down, as opposed to having a minute 30 to do that if you had good entries. However, if you're an entry and you notice that you're in this position, then unfortunately, you're not an entry anymore. Like I said, entering really is only a role that actually takes place within the first minute of the round. At that point, you're just a flex operator, or someone to bait, or just a fragger, not an entry fragger. So do your job accordingly. If you see that you have people that have utility on the board, then just frag. If you have low HP from a fight that you took earlier, but you still didn't kill the guy, then maybe have people bait you because you're low HP anyways. Or if you're in a solo queue environment and your teammates are absolute bricks in the head, then bait them. It doesn't matter. There's a lot that you can do if you want to actually be a good entry fragger. Now, something that I wanted to add as an honorable mention to this video, not really in the 4, but definitely something that you should do no matter what stage you're at, is you need to be droning in yourself or having someone drone you in. If you look at any Pro League roster for Siege, they have their supports, their aces, their thermites, their thatchers droning in their entries, so the entries know exactly where the enemies are that they're facing. I've talked about this time and time again on my channel. Taking a gunfight when you have information is 30 times easier and 10 times more likely to win if you have information and they don't. If they're defending, they typically won't have as much information because the only thing that they can really rely on without operator abilities is default cams that you probably shot in the prep phase anyways. This is why Yana is one of the most popular solo queue operators in the game. Asking for your teammates to drone you in is almost impossible because 10 times out of 10 they will not listen to you, so being able to drone yourself in as Yana is pretty nice. But now that she's being nerfed and doesn't have flash grenades for entry fragging, this might not be something that you can viably do, but still something that you should consider. As an entry frag, because you're not droning your teammates in, you are able to waste your prep phase drone, but I don't really recommend it for the sake of information. Instead, put a cutoff camera somewhere typically behind the defender that you're trying to roam clear. That way if they run away, you'll know about it. Or you can just ask your teammate to get on a camera really quick and watch it so that you know where they are. Then you can have a drone that you're droning to the actual person while you have a drone behind them, so you know where they are at all times, and then you can swing and pre-fire off of the information. Not only this, but like I said, entering is about map control, and if a defender who you're trying to roam clear or just kill in general is getting droned by not one but maybe even multiple drones, a Yana clone, maybe you're pre-firing through barricades, it doesn't matter, they're much more likely to give up the room and give up that space that you're trying to take if they feel the pressure of all these drones coming at them. Because if they see 2 drones or a Yana clone and 1 drone, drone or a drone and a pre-fire, they're going to assume that 2 people are roam clearing them instead of 1. And like I said, 1v2s, 1v3s, 1v4s are much scarier and harder to take, so they're much more likely to give up the room that you are trying to roam clear if you simply just drone people out. Not only, again, does it give you map control, but it makes the gunfights that you're about to take way easier. So I thought that I'd actually mention that in the video because it's something that you need to start doing no matter, again, what level you're at in Siege or your roaming journey. But with that out of the way, that is it for today's video. Check out my roaming video where I talked about literally the exact same thing, but for roaming, where I go way more in depth. My name's Alka, and I hope that I will see you there. Later.